In an interrogation room, Wazzy is in unbearable pain because he's been stabbed. Captain Freeman brings him some paperwork to sign, but since Wazzy's right hand is bleeding, he forces him to sign with his left one. When Freeman asks him if he wants to say anything in his defense, Wazzy begins to remember how it all started. Late at night, Wazzy secretly meets with his girlfriend Primo. They get into her car and Primo quickly gets affectionate, but first Wazzy gifts her a ring. Primo reminds him that they don't have an actual relationship and they're only having fun. Since they belong to rival gangs, they can't be seen together. Wazzy wants to run away with her, but Primo only gives him the ring back. At that moment, a police car stops behind them and the cops tell Primo to come out. After she does so, they check inside the car and find a loaded gun. Officer Ethan looks at the gun and hesitates, so the deputy reminds him that he must do this if he wants to be part of the night patrol. Suddenly, Ethan raises the gun and shoots Primo in the head. A terrified Wazzy immediately runs away and a cop follows him while Ethan finds Wazzy's bicycle on the ground. A sticker shows the street name Boy. Wazzy keeps running for a while and has to hide behind a wall to catch his breath. The cop finds him and points his gun at him, but he runs away when he sees Wazzy's ring glowing green. The next morning, Ethan goes to a school to give a talk about his police work. Suddenly, Gang Xavier enters the room and opens fire, causing all the teens to panic and try to hide. Xavier then makes one of the students come to his side and forces him to suck his thumb. Ethan interrupts him to reveal that this is just a demonstration and the gun only had blanks. In the parking lot, Ethan scolds Xavier for using blanks inside a school. Xavier thinks it was worth it to scare the kids into avoiding crime and even points his gun at the same student when he comes out just for a little extra fear. Afterward, the duo patrols the town, occasionally stopping to catch a bad driver. They chat as they drive and tease each other for their pasts. Xavier used to be in the gang, while Ethan used to be a Navy SEAL. When their bodies are sore from sitting for so long, they leave the car to exercise. Eventually, they stop at a food stand for lunch and Ethan asks Xavier if he met someone called Boy when he was still in the gang. Xavier explains that was his brother's gamer handle back in the and calls him to ask about it. When Wazzy hears that name, he quickly hangs up. Then Wazzy goes to Primo's gang's headquarters, but at the gate a man appears behind him and covers his head with a bag. Seconds later, Wazzy finds himself tied to a chair and surrounded by gangsters. Leader Bornelius points his gun at him because he thinks Wazzy is here looking for gang rivalry trouble, but Wazzy tells him that the police killed his sister. He tells them about the night patrol and how they knew that Primo would be there. Bornelius gets suspicious and makes one of his men scan Wazzy with a device to confirm that he's human. A furious Bornelius threatens Wazzy again, demanding to know why the police let him go and accusing him of being a snitch. Wazzy swears he doesn't know, yet Bornelius refuses to believe him. Moments later, the group finds Primo's car and her body, which is missing limbs and appears to have been chewed. The gangsters begin discussing what monster could do this, but Wazzy insists it was the police. The men then put a stick pyramid to clean Primo's energy so she can rest in peace, and Bornelius concludes that whatever killed her will come for them next. In the evening, Wazzy goes home and moves some furniture to reveal a hole in the wall. Instead of his secret cache, he finds a note from his mom that says "My house, my money." His mother Ayanda scolds him for being out all night and freaks out when she notices he stole her ring. He tells her what happened, and Ayanda says that he's brought the police's attention to their people, reminding him that this is how they killed his dad. Ayanda mentions the forces of good and evil and announces they must prepare for war. Meanwhile, the night patrol drives around town killing black men who are doing innocent things like playing video games or taking out the trash. One of the cops pokes a wand to taste the victim's blood. At a bar, Ethan and Xavier are playing pool. Another cop approaches them and informs Ethan that he's been accepted into the night patrol, so they drink to celebrate. Then they continue to drink in a storehouse while shooting their guns for fun. Xavier keeps asking about the night patrol, and Ethan realizes he wants to join it, so he asks why. After some hesitation, Xavier shares that his father was a member of the Crips and made the whole family join. His mother is obsessed with African mysticism, and one day she shot her husband during an argument. In return, Ethan shares that his father was also night patrol and he died on the job, but he suspects his teammates arranged his death. At that moment, the deputy comes to pick up Ethan. Before he leaves, Xavier asks him to keep an eye out for his brother. During the ride, the deputy reveals he has Ethan's Navy file and mentions an incident in Afghanistan. An entire camp of insurgents tried to ambush Ethan's unit only to end up with their heads on spikes. The deputy isn't impressed by this and reminds Ethan to be a team player. Eventually, the car stops outside Wazzy's home and the deputy tells Ethan that the abandoned bicycle is in the trunk. Ethan grabs it before approaching the building and Iona sees him on the security cameras. She opens the door for him and Ethan claims he's here to return the bicycle to Wazzy. So, Iona calls him while Ethan notices some mysterious pamphlets on the table. Wazzy is surprised to see Ethan and stays silent while remembering Primo's death. Ethan tells him to use the bicycle for good and leaves. In the car, Ethan tells the deputy that Wazzy wasn't home. Afterward, Ethan is taken to a warehouse with the rest of the night patrol and he's shocked to find his father Hawkins. Starting to feel dizzy, Ethan refuses to accept that this is real, but Hawkins says he was reborn from a bloodbath and that Ethan shall do the same. The deputy laughs and Ethan pushes him as he realizes they put something in his drink. Then Ethan insists his father is dead, but Hawkins begins talking about how proud he is of his son. A crying Ethan hugs him before Hawkins asks him to be reborn into perfection. Ethan is still too confused and dizzy to understand his father's vague talk. Two cops grab him and the deputy punches him to knock him down. Using a knife, Hawkins spills his blood into his son's mouth saying he dreamed about this for a long time. Once Ethan has swallowed the blood, Hawkins tells him to live forever before shooting him several times. The next morning, Freeman scolds Xavier for his behavior at the school. Xavier asks to be considered for the night patrol, but Freeman turns him down. Afterward, Xavier goes patrolling with Rivette, who keeps making disgusting comments about women. Xavier misses his old camaraderie with Ethan. Meanwhile, Wazzy is in his room listening to music. Iona angrily turns it off by throwing the remote control and forces Wazzy to help her fortify the neighborhood against demons. Wazzy goes outside to hand out pamphlets and the neighbors mock him for having to do crazy chores like a kid. When Wazzy tries to explain he's a grown-up, Ianda yells at him from the roof and the neighbors laugh more. Afterward, Wazzy follows Ianda's instructions and calls Xavier to tell him he saw a murder, so they agree to meet. At the station, Xavier tries to find Ethan to no avail. He has no choice but to ask the deputy to tell Ethan that he has some clues about the murder. He also uses the chance to mention he would be good for the night patrol. The deputy asks him if he'd arrest his own brother, so an awkward Xavier says he arrests criminals. Afterward, Xavier and Rivette go to the black neighborhood, where the gangsters keep glaring at them as they pass. They enter an old restaurant where Wazzy and his group are waiting and Xavier tells his brother that they must go. Since Wazzy doesn't move, Rivette threatens to shoot them all. Ianda laughs at him and calls Xavier a disappointment. After a short argument with his mother, Xavier tells Wazzy that the night patrol is looking for him and they'll kill anyone who tries to get in the way. Ianda points her gun at Xavier and says Wazzy isn't going anywhere. Rivette gets angry and tries to confront her, only for Ianda to shoot him in the head. Then she tells Xavier that the police killed one of their people last night, so this is the message he must take back. Xavier refuses to leave and punches one of the gangsters, so Ianda strikes him with the gun and surrounds him with the other men to beat him up. Afterward, Wazzy calls Bornelius and tells him that the cop who killed Primo will be patrolling the town tonight. His mother thinks she can stop him with voodoo and Wazzy is afraid she'll get them all killed, so he asks Bornelius to come with his men for extra protection. While the gang gathers all their weapons from storage, Ianda forces Wazzy to help her protect the neighborhood by installing various protective structures. In the evening, the night patrol gathers in a warehouse and Hawkins gives them a speech, reminding them to have no mercy for their prey. Ethan is still unconscious on the floor, so Hawkins uses his special vision to look at his heart and tells him to rise. Then Ethan wakes up still feeling dizzy. He tries to concentrate while his father tells him that he's been made in the image of God and hands him a pair of metal fangs. The other cops are getting their weapons and celebrating that tonight they get to riot. When Bornelius arrives, he talks to Iana to exchange information and they realize that the cops killed Primo to manufacture a fake conflict between the gangs. For tonight, the gangs agree to work together to fight the police. At the restaurant, Xavier finally wakes up and rushes to his car to ask for backup. The operator tells him that the night patrol is already on its way. A worried Xavier rushes to get his weapons from the trunk, only to suddenly be startled by Ethan. Xavier asks him if he'll help him rescue his brother and Ethan agrees to go with him. Soon the power goes out in many streets. The cops have sent 2 guys to cut the cables and move the protective structure so they could pass. They've also thrown a few gas grenades to create a fog for extra cover. The night patrol starts kicking down doors and murdering civilians with no mercy. Dozens of black people are killed by the second and all their blood is gathered in a big container. Some cops lick the blood directly from the floor while others save a few young people in a cage for later. While searching the area with Xavier, Ethan hears his father's voice telling him to feed and wash himself in blood. He has to stop walking because he's feeling dizzy again and admits he regrets not listening to the reports about the truth behind the night patrol before joining. Ethan pulls out his gun intending to self-delete and Xavier has to stop him. Having his friend so close finally makes Ethan snap and he bites Xavier's neck to rip off his skin. After Xavier drops dead, Ethan desperately drinks his blood. At that moment, Ethan notices that Wazzy has been watching him. Before he can react, Bornelius and his men shoot him down. To Wazzy's shock, Ethan just stands up and his injuries heal in seconds. The gang opens fire again, so Ethan runs away. Bornelius announces that his team will hunt the rest of the cops, but Wazzy wants to find his mother and leave. In the meantime, the deputy tells the caged prisoners that they'll pump out their blood so they can feed for months. He calls them the poop on America's boot and says nobody will notice they're gone. Then he slashes a black man's neck and licks his blood while explaining how much he enjoys the taste of fear. While bombs start blowing up in the neighborhood, Ethan finds the cage and knocks down the guard. In his dizziness, he manages to understand that the people in the cage are prisoners, so he starts beating the guard up. He even rips out his organs before running away. Meanwhile, Wazzy and the gang notice their phones aren't working and realize the cops are jamming the signal. The gang begins arguing about what kind of monsters the officers are and how to kill them, so Wazzy informs them they're vampires and insists they should go to his mom's house because she has protection. The guys think she's already dead, but at that moment they hear shots in the distance. The group finds Ayanda at a window shooting at the deputy. He collapses for a second before his wound closes and he stands up again. The gangsters quickly open fire. However, their bullets are useless against a vampire. The deputy kills a few of the men before knocking Wazzy out. When he wakes up, Wazzy finds himself inside a tent where they're pumping the blood out of the victims. Bornelius is next to him and tells him to get the knife from his pocket, but the deputy hears them talk and separates them. At that moment, Ethan enters the tent and the deputy insults him for not being able to control his hunger. Ethan punches him and the men start to fight, so Wazzy and Bornelius use the chance to run away. They feel bad for the people in the cages, but they have no time to help. After exchanging a few hits, Ethan overpowers the deputy and starts feeding on him. Afterward, Ethan runs out of the tent and jumps on another cop. Before he can punch him, he feels his father's power stopping his arm. Ethan tries to fight against this as Hawkins speaks in his head, telling him that he's watched him all these years and chose him because of his discipline. Suddenly, Ethan feels unbearable pain and ends up throwing up. A cop pushes a woman in front of him and Hawkins tells him to drink as he puts a knife in his hand. Ethan tries to attack the cop, but Hawkins stops him and guides the knife to slash Ethan's throat instead. The cop then kills the woman and her blood spreads on the ground as Hawkins keeps telling him to drink. Meanwhile, Wazzy and Bornelius find Ayanda crying over Xavier's body. Bornelius leaves to keep fighting while Wazzy fails to comfort his mother. At that moment, Ethan appears behind them, but before he can attack, Bornelius stabs him in the chest with a stake. This appears to kill Ethan for good, confirming that the old tales are true. Ayanda explains that the old artifacts of their people like the ring can protect them, and she even warned everyone about vampires in the pamphlet, but nobody read it. While Hawkins keeps talking in Ethan's mind to try to revive him, Wazzy grabs a shovel and breaks the handle to make 2 stakes. Ayanda thinks they have to go back to their roots and says she has the best weapon in her apartment, so they get moving. After they leave, Ethan wakes up and runs to the big blood container. He opens the tap and the blood pours out, but he fails to catch any with his mouth. As several fires spread through the neighborhood, the trio finds a cop feeding inside a car and immediately stab him at the same time. At that moment, Ethan appears behind them with a team of cops, and the heroes realize that stakes don't work after all. Bornelius makes Wazzy and Ayanda run, and once the cops are close enough, he detonates a bomb he had hidden in his clothes. A big explosion takes down a few officers, but it's still not enough. The rest of the cops start chasing after Wazzy and Ayanda, slashing them several times before the duo manages to hide in the apartment. The cops gather outside with Ethan, who is carrying the deputy's head. When he starts talking, it's revealed that Hawkins is controlling him. Hawkins reminds Ayanda that they had a deal. If she kept her voodoo stuff confined to her ghetto, his team would look the other way on her people. Since tonight she used voodoo, the deal is over. While the cops light a flare and threaten to burn the building, Ayanda gives Wazzy her ring and tells him to fight since she's too weak to continue. As the fire begins, Wazzy gets a box from the closet to search for the special weapon his mother mentioned, only to find a ceremonial outfit with a spear. When he turns around to ask questions, he finds his mother dead. As Wazzy cries, the ring starts glowing and he finally understands. Seconds later, Wazzy comes out of the apartment wearing the ceremonial outfit. The spear in his hand is glowing too and causes all the vampires to step back. Ethan falls on his knees and says he's been controlled, but he's actually a good guy. Wazzy reminds him that he killed all his loved ones, but when he's about to attack, Hawkins takes control of Ethan again and blocks the spear. He throws it on the ground to break it before knocking Wazzy down. Then Wazzy grabs the glowing point of the spear and tries to attack again. His mouth becomes monstrous as he starts to float and soon they're flying above town. Wazzy can't move the hand with the spear point, so instead he starts punching his enemy with the ring. After a few hits, Ethan explodes and both bodies crash on the ground. Moments later, Wazzy is in the police station with the spear point inserted in his body, which accidentally happened when he crashed. Freeman refuses to bring a doctor if he doesn't get information first, so Wazzy tells him what happened. However, Freeman isn't surprised and explains that vampires have been in the force for decades. When Wazzy asks him why he protects the vampires, Freeman says he doesn't care about race. He only cares about protecting the police. He takes Wazzy to another room where the spear point starts to glow. Hawkins appears and threatens to get his revenge, but Wazzy acts fast and stabs him in the face with the spear point, causing him to explode. More vampires appear in the room, so Wazzy gets ready to fight. This is the end of Movie Night Patrol. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more amazing movie recaps.